Angular components. A component is the building block of an Angular applications. Every Angular applications is made up of multiple components. Instead of developing the entire application as a one large program, Angular divides into smaller reusable parts called components. An Angular application is built using multiple components. Each component is responsible for one particular task. So component combine HTML, CSS and TypeScript to create reusable and maintaining user interface elements. Using components make Angular application organized, scalable and easy to manage. Structure of Angular component. Each component of an Angular application has a few important parts which are as follows. First one is at component decorator. All the applications related configurations are written inside this decorator. Second one is HTML template. So it is mainly used to view of the Angular applications. Third one is styles. It controls the styles of your view. The final one is TypeScript class. Code related to behavior of the Angular applications goes into this class. Then how to create a component in Angular. So in Angular, a new component is created using the ng-generate component command as specified the below. So you have to give ng-generate component and then name of the component. So example, so let's see an example when create a new component in our expense manager applications. This component will contain our first expense entry. First, open the command prompt and navigate to the expense manager applications and then give cd expense manager. And then now use the command given below to create an expense entry component. ng space generate component expense entry. Following files and folders will be created by Angular CLI on the above command. So if create specs.ts, entry.ts, entry.css, then entry.html. So this is an example for entry.ts. In that entry.html, you have to give item, amount, category, locations, as well as spent on date. The final one is app.html. Then you have to give app.ts. Finally, the output of the application is shown like this. So why you use component? So by dividing the applications into the component, the code becomes reusable, easy to maintain, easier to test, and easier for multiple developers to work on simultaneously. If there is a change in the header or footer, we only update that component instead of modifying the entire applications. Then the advantages of Angular component. First one is reusable. A component can be created once and used multiple times across the applications. Example, a product component can display the laptops, mobile, TV or any other product by simply passing the different data. So the benefit is it reduces the duplicate code. The second one is easy to maintain. Each component has its own HTML, CSS and TypeScript files. If there is an issue in the code page, you need to update the code component without affecting the other component of the applications. The third one is modular development. Component divide a larger applications into smaller manageable modules. Example, op component contains header component, product component, card component, then footer component. This makes the application easier to understand and manage. And then better readability. The code is organized into small focused components, making it easier for the developer to read and understand. Then easy testing. Each component can be tested independently using unit test. This makes debugging and maintenance easier. And then team collaboration. Multiple developers can work on different components simultaneously. So example, developer 1 develop the header component, developer 2 develop the product component, developer 3 develop the card component, the finally developer 4 create the footer component. This speed up the development. And then scalability. As the application grows, new feature can be added as a new component without changing the existing one. So example, here we add the wishlist component, review component, etc. And then better user experience. Only the required component update instead of reloading the entire page. This results in a faster and smoother user experience. The final one is reusable AI. The reusable UA can be used in a different modules. Example, a button component or loader component can be used throughout the applications. And then drawbacks of Angular components. So first one is too many components. Larger applications can ended up with hundreds of components. Managing them can become challenging without a proper folder structure. Second one is component communication complexity. Passing the data between deeply nested components can become difficult. Data may need to be passed to multiple levels using at input and at output or managed with shared services. And then more files. Each component creates several files. For larger applications, the number of files increased significantly. And then initial learning curve. Beginners need to understand components, modules, service, dependency injection, routing, and then lifecycle hooks. This can take time. And then performance issues. If there are too many components or inefficient change detection, the application can experience performance issues. And then dependency between the modules. Poor design component may become tightly coupled. making reuse and maintenance more difficult. And then more planning required. Before development, it is important to decide which components are needed, parent-child relationship, how data will flow. Poor planning can lead to unnecessary complexity. Now I taken on real-time example. To understand the Angular 8 component, let's take a real-time example of an online shopping application such as Amazon or Flipkart. When you open the website, you don't see one large web page created from a single file. Instead, Angular divides the application into smaller reusable components, where each component performs a specific task. This approach makes the applications modular, maintainable, and easy to develop. The first one is app component. So it is also called as root component. The app component is the root component of the application. It is the first component that loads when the application starts. It acts as a parent component and contains all the other components. It loads header component, product list component, cart component, then footer component. So for example, when a customer opens Amazon, the app components loads the entire home page by combining all these smaller components. And then the header component. The header component appears at the top of every page. It contains company logo, navigations menu, search bar, login options, shopping cart icon. Since the header is common across all pages, it is created as a reusable component. So for example, whether you are a home page, product page or payment page, the same header is displayed. The third one is product list component. It displays all the available products. It is the responsibility for fetch product details from backend API, arrange the products in rows and columns, pass the product information to the product component. For example, when you search for laptop, the product list component retrieves all the laptop product from the database and display them. And then product component. The product component displays information about a single product. It shows product image, product name, price, rating, description, add to the cart button. This component is reused for every product. For example, whether the product is laptop, mobile phone, television, shoes or watch, Angular uses the same product component and simply changes the product data. And then cart component. The cart component manages the shopping cart. Whether the user clicks add to cart, the product component sends the selected product details to the parent component. The cart component updates cart item count, selected product and then the total amount. For example, if you add 3 products, the cart icon immediately changes from 0 to 3. The last one is footer component. Footer component appears at the bottom of every page. It contains contact us, about us, privacy policy, terms and condition, copyright information, social media links. Since the footer is common to all pages, Angular creates as it is reusable component. So Angular 8 follows a component based architecture, where an application is divided into small, independent and reusable components. In an online application system, components such as the app component, header component, product list component, product component, cart component, and footer component works together to build a complete interactive and user-friendly website. When an Angular component is constructed, it first go through the change detection phase. Whether there are any changes in the input and then acts accordingly. Then the initialization phase kicks on and continues to other phases and finally get destroyed into the destruction phase. And then Angular component lifecycle. Angular component go through a series of stages during its existence. It is necessary to understand how a component interacts with the framework and the DOM through its existence. So component lifecycle phases in Angular. The different stages of the Angular component lifecycle are as follows. First one is creation. It is the first phase where a component is instantiated. The second one is change detection. Then Angular tries to detect changes in the view and the content of the application. Third one is rendering. After change detection, the new template is updated. The final one is destruction. The component is destroyed at the end. Component lifecycle hook in Angular. Each phase of the Angular component is associated with the lifecycle hook. Interface which can be implemented to perform arbitrary action in that particular phase. Generally, the lifecycle hooks refer to the methods of the lifecycle hook interface. So this is the execution order of component lifecycle hooks. First one is ng on changes, ng on init, ng do check, ng after content init, ng after content checked, ng after view init, ng after view checked, ng on changes, ng do check, ng after content check, ng after view checked. Repeat of step 8 to 11 until destruction. Finally, you have to give ng on destroy. Here, let's create a new component, my lifecycle component, wires up all hooks and check the sequence of the lifecycle using the console output. In step 1, create a new component using Angular CLI as shown below. So ng component, my lifecycle sample. This will create a new component and its later template and style shown below. So in that sample.spec.ts, sample.ts, sample.css, sample.html. Step 2 is add all lifecycle hooks into the component and log messages. So this is my lifecycle sample.ts. Here we use all the lifecycle hooks methods. ng do check, ng after content init, ng after view. Finally, we use ng on destroy. In step 3, add the component in the app component template app component.html. So finally run the application using ngserve and test the console through developer tool in the browser. It will show all the lifecycle events executing in the above discussed order. So finally the output is shown like this. So that's all about Angular components.